power. All my life Satan tried to get me. Walking my shoes, devil trying to fit me. But he don't know I got the power 50. Nah, he don't know I walk the tower 50.
Good evening. It's your man H-Rap coming at you live and direct. Thank you for tapping in once again. This is Build and Destroy on Interdimension Media. Thank you for tapping in again. Hit that like, hit that share, subscribe, like. It helps with the algorithm and helps grow the atmosphere. Thank you for tuning in as I do every week. I want to thank my parents, John and Dolores. Without them, there is no me. Without John and Dolores, there is no Brian. Without Brian, there is no End of the Bench. Without you, there is no End of the Bench as well. So thank you for tuning in. Public Enemy, as you see, Public Enemy. That's the title of the show this week. The title of the show this week is called Public Enemy because I perceive us as Public Enemy. Public Enemy number 1 to be exact. Later on, I will show you a video of how the continent of Africa was divided and how we ended up in the position we were in. It will hopefully diffuse some of the propagandized information that you get about Africa and how we were sold and things of that nature. You will see the actual and factual way the continent was split up so you'll understand why you're in the situation that you're in. I will also talk about the attack and the onslaught of negative information and propagandized news about Vice President Kamala Harris. I do believe at this point, everybody in our community should never address her as Kamala Harris again. She should be addressed properly as Vice President Kamala Harris. If we're going to ask people to respect us, we need to respect the people who we've put in position. We backed her in regards to this, and we need to continue to back her. And then I would also talk about entertainers. We have no place to listen to entertainers. 60 plus years ago, the great ancestor Malcolm X mentioned that we're the only community that have entertainers, actors, and athletes representing us. We don't have political scientists. We don't have people who are astute and governmental control representing us, and we need to move away from that because a lot of these people are using their platform, and you could even say they're on the take. You can say they're doing it to benefit them, and if they're going to do things to benefit them, we need to make sure we pull our money away from them and benefit us. And then I will talk about something. I've invited quite a few people to listen this week. I usually don't send out a whole lot of notifications but I wanted people to listen to the very end of this episode because at the very end of this episode, I'm going to talk about humanity as I see it. And hopefully it's something that sparks an idea in your mind. And you can take something away from what I'm talking about. Salute to my buddy, Brady Care. Thank you for the support. Maybe you can take something away from what I'm going to say at the end of the program and it'll enhance everything about your life. If not, I'm sure it'll give you something to think about. Now, let me start by talking about the title of the show, Public Enemy number 1. See, what we do is talk about things as if we are separate. We are not, we make statements. You have people on these platforms, these gigantic platforms like the Breakfast Club and other entities that proudly and joyfully boast, we are not a monolith. We don't move in the same way. Well, if you're talking about you being a community or we put it like this, you and your family, there's people in your family that move. We all are tentacles. We move in several different directions. But when it comes to family, you come together as a group and you move as a family. You move as a family that way. You move as a group that way. You move as a community that way. You move as a clan that way. You move as a city that way, a county, a state, a country, so forth and so on. So why would we be different? Let's stop telling people we are not, especially when we have been under attack for more than 400 years. On Earth, we've been under attack for thousands of years. But here in this country, we've been under attack. On this continent, we've been under attack for over 400 years. So why would we give our known and sworn enemies the ability to attack us as separate entities, come at us at once, and we can defeat anything that comes our way? Now, back to Vice President Harris. We can in essence use her as a sounding board. She represents us. You can be foolish enough to say, well, her dad is from Jamaica and her mom is from India, so she's not really one of us. But at the end of the day, she is one of us, and you can divide us. You can be foolish enough to divide us if you like, and that will be to your detriment. Use her as the blueprint of how they see you. If you haven't paid attention, we are looking at a situation to whereas we are public enemy number one. Public enemy number one. And when we see how they denigrate an educated person, a well-accomplished person, and a person who's holding the second highest office in the land, you'll definitely be able to understand how they view you. So you can you can talk, you can speak the best English, you can dress to the nines, you can be academically astute and academically accomplished, and they will still see you in a specific way, especially if you're a Black woman, because whether you realize it or not, because they hate the way our skin looks, they lynch us to get to that woman, because that woman is the key to our existence. You remove it, we will A, lose a piece of us, and B, lose our ability to reproduce. So this is the key. If you continue to elevate this person and make this person separate from this Black man, then that's half the battle. In essence, it has already been won. But when you make statements like she's not qualified, that's asinine, because this is a person that's insanely qualified. When you say she slept her way up to the top, that's another insult. That's attacking Black women in general, that they are not academically astute enough to work to the top. And then they say she's too hard on crime. She's too light on crime. We even had this jerk of a former president who, in my personal opinion, is a white nationalist at the highest level, come out and ridicule her for the way she laughs. Remember, if you don't know, and maybe I'm not even reminding you of this, if you don't know this, when you say a barrel of laughs, that is a racial trope. Black people at one point in this country couldn't laugh out loud. So if you had to laugh, you would literally have to stick your head in a barrel and laugh into it, and then you could return to normal society. That is a fact. So these things tie into each other. We can look at things and say, oh man, that's not that serious. Those are the old days. But if you look at the way people are approaching us and the disrespect that we're being met with and the vitriolic behavior that is being forced upon us, nothing changes. Nothing has changed in 167 years. Nothing will change. Nothing has changed since 1776. Nothing has changed since 1505 when the Pope said, hey, making African people a commodity was okay. Shout out to Denise Milk and Cookies. Thank you for the support. Always good to see you. Now, if they haven't changed in 500, 600, 700 years, why would they change size and everybody doesn't see things this way? Well, I just have one question. If there are good people on both sides and everybody's not against you and everybody's not anti-Brian and anti-Brian's people, explain to me how the Emancipation Proclamation was signed 18 January. It went into effect. It was ratified January 1st. The original Juneteenth is January 1st, 1863. Just for information, for edification purposes. And here we are, 160 years later, and guess what? Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. We had a small period in which it's called Reconstruction. We had leaps and bounds, and then they started creating laws. Loitering is a law that was created to enslave you. Redlining, and the list is endless of things that have been set up to upend your progress. So let's not get into this nonsense about everybody's not cool. This is what I would offer to you. This is just how I feel. But just imagine this. When we hear criminality on television, we immediately attribute it to people in our community. A lot of people I've spoken with over the last couple of weeks, when former President Donald Trump was when they had that fake assassination attempt, y'all said it. The first thing a lot of people I knew said, I hope you're not one of us. Because when we think we've been programmed to believe anything that's criminal, it is going to be attached to us. So what we need to do is realize we're not the criminals. Just like I say time and time again, there are very few people in our community that are participating in criminality. There are very few people in the other communities that don't think it's us, that don't think we're the problem. Because if we make up 13% of the population, and then that other 87% is good, mostly good. Why is it that most people in this country does not look like an Anglo-Saxon white heterosexual man, or does not fall around with that has to disconnect? But again, this is the plan that's been set in place for hundreds of years that put us in a horrible situation to make us doubt ourselves, make us hate ourselves. And then you get people like, then you even have black white nationalists, Candace Owens, Jason Whitlock, and sometimes even Stephen A. Smith. See, that's why he goes over to Fox, because he realizes, hey, I'm gonna go on Sean Hannity's show and I'm gonna go on these other shows so I can be accepted, and I won't be seen as them. But guess what? No matter what you do and how much butt you kiss, you'll still be received as one of us when the smoke clears. With history, again, history will give you an indicator of what's on the way. When they did this, ran this same play at the in the midst of World War II, what happened? They got rid of the Ethiopian Jews. They got rid of the people that they labeled gypsies. And then at the end of that, what did they do? They went to the Aberkanashi Jewish people. And then at that point, the rest of the world had to step in and defend them. If you continue to separate yourself from our community because I'm educated and I'm this and I have money and I'm this and that, guess what's going to happen? Good to see you, T. Guess what's going to happen? You will be at the end of the pipeline and they will attack you next. And that's just the way the word history teaches us this. So while you, I don't really like her policy, I don't really like this, I don't really like that, do you want to fight someone with a cannon, or do you want to fight somebody with a slingshot? And that's really what's going to happen. You're going to survive the blow from the slingshot. It may be extremely painful, it may hurt you, but it's not going to destroy you. And look, I am independent. I have no allegiance to any party, and I would advise every black person in the United States of America to disconnect from any and every party whatsoever. Now, up until the moment we create our little wall around us and make sure the laws are in accordance to what we need and not in accordance to how or what they think we need. These are the things that we need to pay attention to. We can put hours upon hours into music, hours upon hours into television, hours upon hours into streaming services and movies. We can also put a couple of those, it's 168 hours in a week. You can put an hour towards enhancing your civic knowledge. Therefore, these people won't be able to destroy you. We have people standing around talking about Project 2025 is not going to affect us. There's never been any law that is a detriment to the working class that did not affect us initially. Not one. So why would that be the one and only instance in which laws are created and rights are taken away that won't destroy us? Let's not be asinine. Let's not be whores to money again. I've seen fellow podcasters come on and speak up for what I perceive as a white nationalist, as a person who does not have anything but disdain for people in our community. You talk about this is a guy who goes on television and openly lies, and he has a conduit who lies even more than him. These are the things that we need to be paying attention to. You got people. I have a close personal friend who I took the time out of my day and scrolled his Facebook page. The first thing when President Joe Biden said, hey, I'm not running again. It's the first time since Lyndon Baines Johnson did it in 1968 against Richard Nixon. So don't let nobody tell you that this hasn't happened. It has happened before. He said he's not going to run for re-election. But now, and in this instance, he announced it far sooner than this situation, but that's neither here nor there. Now, we're looking at a situation. Nice to see you, Lisa. Thank you for the support. We're looking at this situation where they're telling you she's too hard on crime. She's not tough enough on crime. They said she's too hard on, not tough enough on crime, simply because a police officer's guilty has not affected any crime in any state whatsoever in the history of the United States of America. So what happens if you enforce a death penalty and you get the wrong person? That wrong person is no longer here. How many times, I am sure, if you turn on your TV and watch the news every day until the beginning of September, from today, the next to the last day of July to the 1st of September, you will come across a case in which somebody has been incarcerated, wrongfully incarcerated, spent a dozen years or more in jail. So This is what I want you to understand. The death penalty means nothing. They telling you, oh, well, she's too light on crime, and then she's too hard on crime. I'm looking at people who are clear white nationalists, who have an agenda, who are supporting an agenda to put us back in bondage. And now all of a sudden we have legions and legions of conservative white, conservative rich white men and women that care about black people going to jail. Really? Really? So why are you not up in arms about our sister who was just assassinated by a police officer? Why are you not speaking about that? Again, you got people on TV, you got people on these platforms, the same platform that are on, telling people that, hey, it's okay to support a white nationalist because the Democratic Party hasn't done anything for us. And the only thing I will combat that with is this. What if they've done exactly what you asked for? I don't want to hear about, hey, man, we know that they know what we need. Well, you know what? Everybody in the world knows what I need. I need $1 billion. And I ain't seen anybody run towards me, but I've never asked everybody in the world for $1. So we don't, the politics don't work with what the politician knows you want. Politicians work. Politics work with what you ask for. And I would argue that a lot of people in my community have not done right. State representative is. How many people know who the county commissioner is? How many people know who the school board president is? How many people right here in Chicago know that the conversation right now, and they're having an open forum so you can walk in and see what the teachers are arguing about with the union? How many people know that? If any, not many. These are the things that we need to talk about. How is it that a lot of us, if not all of us, have at least one young school-aged child in our family, grandchildren, children, nieces, nephews, or cousins, and we don't know what's going on in public school? Now, if you're going to pay for private school, then different situation. But most of the people who are watching this program do not have the means to take care. Their ends are not meeting to the point where they can put their children in private school. So we need to know everything that's going on in public school, border to border, coast to coast. Now you got people saying that they need to, like, look, I am a believer. So put the 10 Commandments in the classroom means nothing to me. But you know what it doesn't mean? Something to my friend Mike. My friend Mike is a Muslim. I'm quite sure he don't want his grandchildren sitting in the classroom where they talk about the 10 Commandments, because that's not of his belief. I got a friend named Clayton and a friend named Joe. They're Jehovah's Witness. They're practicing Jehovah's Witnesses. Do they want their children in school reading about the 10 Commandments? I thought it was supposed to be a separated church and state. These are the things, again, we need to be paying attention to. And when they attack this woman, Vice President Kamala Harris, and say she's too heavy on crime, oh man, she locked up a bunch of black people. Here's the statistics on that. 1,649 black men were locked up for marijuana. 1,649 black men were locked up for marijuana, incarcerated for marijuana, arrested for marijuana possession. 49 of them went to the penitentiary. That's not being too hard or soft on crime. What she did was put them in a situation. If you entered this program and you obtain your GED, you didn't go to the penitentiary. So she put you in a position so you can elevate yourself immediately. She also reduced the recidivism rate in the state of California at 53%. That means 10% of the people it was reduced to 10% of the people going to the penitentiary at that point. Now, the people who had large and insane amounts of marijuana at that point, they went to the penitentiary. The last time I checked, we're living in a world where people, every time they turn on the news, people say, man, they need to do something about this crime. They need to stop this. The way we set the country up, the way the country was set up, incarceration is how you stop a lot of this crime, according to the lawmakers of the world. And again, how many times have you stepped up and talked to your state representative, a community activist? How many times have you mobilized your friends and family so you can go down to city council meetings and ask them to change the laws in your county, your city, your state, so they can stop attacking young black men in the United States of America? If you haven't done that, maybe you need to do that, and then you won't have people attacking you. But again, this is a woman who used to be assistant district attorney, state's attorney, state senator. By the way, they said she slept her way to the top. She was elected to the Senate of the United States Senate, with 82% of the population of the state of California voting for her. That's not sleeping your way to the top. But even if she did, let's just play their game and insult our sister. She slept her way to the top, which is a lie. If she slept her way to the top, she's going up against a game show host. I just wanted you to listen to that one. She's going up. She's an educated woman who graduated top of her class, who passed the bar on the second chance. Most people don't pass it on the second time. You should take the average person 2 or 3 times to pass. She passed it the second time. She worked her way to the top, and she's going up against a game show host. And people think it's funny. Oh man, I'm gonna support this white nationalist. So when we standing in the fields one day, or we incarcerated, or these people have total control over our community, I want to see how funny it is. Then, see, I have no affiliation to any party whatsoever. But what I do understand is this: in 1980, it was this Heritage Foundation, and they had control of this dude named Ronald Wilson Reagan, and 60% of their program was set in place. The reason I can't play the trumpet right now is because the music programs on the west side of Chicago, where I went to school at, were reduced or removed. The school that I went to, it was removed. I didn't have a music program. I didn't have the opportunity to do it. I had other alternatives. I had athletics and things of that nature, so I didn't fall victim to a lot of things that my friends and the people that I grew up around did. But there are other people that were not as blessed as I am, and they did not have the upbringing and the support that I had. And what happens to them? So here we are 40 years later, in the same group and the same situation is being put in play. So I really don't want to hear your foolishness and your tomfoolery about supporting a white nationalist under any circumstances. If you want to do that, God bless you. Just don't support me. Support him. Go listen to him and his lies and his foolishness and do nothing. And then and if it shakes out in your favor, then I'll come on here. I say, you know what? I didn't know what I was talking about. I was dead wrong. But if I'm right, then we don't even need to have that conversation. We just move forward and make sure we take care of the people in our community. That's all I'm trying to get you to understand. But when you are sitting in front of the world and you are under attack by all sides, and you take the side again that poses the greatest threat, then you seem a little asinine to me. And that's all I'm saying. We must put ourselves in an advantageous situation instead of always siding and attempting to meld into a situation. Why don't we set up a situation to where our community will be protected by the laws that they have pretended to protect us with? Because if you pass the 14th and 15th Amendment, you shouldn't have to pass the Civil Rights Act and the Voters' Right Act in 64 and 65, 100 years later. That's all I'm saying. But if you are part of a generation, which I am, Generation X, which was the first generation that was born with all constitutional rights applied to your life, and now you don't have them, what you need to do is fall in line with the situation and make sure, again, you immobilize. You immobilize your friends and family members. When you immobilize, you come up with a plan, and then you organize. After you have the plan, you organize and you move forward for entrepreneurship, group economics. Then when you have entrepreneurship, group economics, you'll be able to fund any and everything that you need. We need to get off the breast milk of the United States federal government outside of the funding that is set aside, the $3 billion that is set aside so you can get that stuff. See, you thought that PPP thing was a scam. No, every year that's $3 to $4 billion of the United States federal budget. So you can apply for it at small business, the smallbusinessassociation.org. Smallbusinessassociation.org. There it is. Didn't think I was going to talk about that, but I am. So this is a situation to whereas, look, I don't need you to support anybody. Support yourself. Support your best interest. So, but you know what the ironic thing, the thing that disturbs me more than anything about this whole white nationalist movement and this black lady that's running against this white nationalist movement. I watched, like I said, I looked at one of my close personal friends. They announced that she was going to step up. He immediately said something negative about her. Before that, he talked about the White Sox. He talked about LeBron James. He talked about going to parties and going to cookouts. We're talking about all the way back to January. Not one political statement. The moment somebody that looks like you step up, we got all this negative vitriol. We got all this negative connotation towards somebody in your community. Stephen A. Smith, Jason Whitlock, Ice Cube, and all these other clowns that show up every 4 years. Explain this to me. If everybody is so concerned about this community, why isn't YouTube inundated with a bunch of Black people that's speaking against these things at all times? Last time I heard Ice Cube was right after the last election. He said, I give up on y'all. Then again, he showed up 4 years later. This is what you need to do. The last time I heard it from one of my favorite, well, actually, I haven't heard from him this time, so I'm not even going to denigrate him. I'm not even going to mention him. But it's a lot of these guys, a lot of these people, Candace Owens shows up every election cycle. If people actually cared about you, explain this to me. If you care about me and my people because you're one of the members of my community, this is what I want to know. Am I going to see you November 1st? No, the day after election, the second Wednesday of November. Will I hear you talking? If I don't hear you talking then, I don't want to hear you talking now. See, it's easy for people to come on here and support clowns and goofballs and to earn an extra little piece of change. And I get it, man. Everybody wants some money. Everybody wants money, but at what cost? How funny is it when your child is being treated like your grandfather? That's what I want to know. How funny would that be? When your see me, I know how my grandfather was treated. I understand how my grandfather was run out of his town and burned out of his town and then run out of Tuskegee. I understand that. But I don't want my grandchild. I don't even have grandchildren. The grandchildren that I may have one day, I don't want them to have to suffer the way my grandfather and my great-grandfather suffered. That's just the way I'm living right now. So you can make all these claims against all this nonsense and foolishness if you like, or you can understand what you're dealing with at all times. We're living in a situation to whereas people are always figuring out a way to separate themselves from the pack. It is utterly amazing how people will recruit everybody in the world up until and including the moment it does not fit their agenda. Or, it's this way, or it's that way, or it's that way, or it's this way. And then when it doesn't fit your agenda, you want to change. You want to change horses. It's amazing. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you this video that I have. And it's on how the European nations split up the continent of Africa and put you in the situation that you're in right now. So if we want to continue to separate ourselves and see ourselves as different entities, this is what happens when you see yourself as something totally different than the past.
Uganda, Rhodesia, South Africa, and more were all once claimed by the British Empire. Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Madagascar, and additional regions fell claim to France. Germany had their own regions by the names of German Southwest Africa, German East Africa, Cameroons, and Togoland. Italy laid claim to Eritrea, Libya, and Somaliland. Angola, Mozambique, and Cabinda joined Portuguese Guinea. Their Spanish neighbors snatched the Spanish Sahara, Spanish Morocco, and Rio Muni. Belgium, or more particularly, the Belgian monarch, snared Congo. This was how the ownership of the African continent was split up as of 1914. Only Liberia and Ethiopia remained free and without European rule. However, just a short while earlier, the Europeans had claimed merely around 10% of African lands, that is, before the scramble for Africa. The 16th century would mark the beginning of European colonization on the African continent.
What exciting benefits do you get as a Hertz Gold Plus Rewards member?
Pick any car you want from Hertz's wide selection of great vehicles. At Flatiron School, we teach tech skills so you can get the career you deserve. Join over 5,000 alumni who have gone on to work in coding, data science, and cybersecurity.
One of the reasons why I'm so excited to get into tech, to have my first programming job, is because of the potential there is in tech.
It took me exactly 2 months from graduation date and my start date at work.
Now is the perfect time to make a career change into tech.
Portugal would start early by laying claim to their new colonies, nearly a century before the Dutch would do the same in South Africa, creating a growing settlement in the Cape of Good Hope. France's Napoleon had his sights on later British-controlled Egypt by the end of the 18th century, and a couple of decades later, the British would take aim at the Dutch Cape of Good Hope. It was shortly after this that Liberia would become home to newly freed African-American slaves, with American approval, to create their own colony. The following decade thus saw a continued steamroll of European colonists rushing to African lands with eager hopes and ambitions on behalf of each of their nations. France seized Algeria and pushed onward. Britain continued its attempt to wrangle South Africa. Germany finally entered the scramble, as Otto von Bismarck looked to establish his country's credibility as an imperial power alongside the others. And further interest from additional European nations eventually led to the Berlin Conference. With tensions on a precipitous rise between European powers, all vying for power and control in their newfound playground, one Leopold II of Belgium hoped to take advantage of the chaos. Hoping to expand his kingdom beyond his humble lands of Belgium itself, Leopold laid claim to what he named the Congo Free State, informing his European neighbors that he was a passionate humanitarian who only hoped to aid the people of Central Africa through abolitionism and further humanitarian aid. Leopold asserted that his new Free State would be a land of rights and liberty for its people. This was the exact opposite of what Leopold would actually do. And he had known all along that his motives were far more sinister than what he told his peers. His leadership over Congo was brutal, and the surrounding European colonizers eventually caught on to his imperial scheme. They reacted by attempting to squeeze Leopold out of Central Africa, by briskly expanding their own territories around him, and around each other. But this led each of them into a downhill tumble, rapidly nearing a collision with one another. Hoping to avoid an all-out war in Africa, or even at home, German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck called his rivals to a meeting. The Berlin Conference would open on November 15, 1884, and last until February 26, 1885. The conference, involving not a single representative from any African nation, had one main aim: split up Africa and place its lands into European hands. This was done first by solidifying claims already made on the continent by the European powers, and additionally by laying a foundation for how the rest of the territory could be taken by a European state. A clear process was set up, although again, this was done entirely without the involvement of the local African populations. Nevertheless, it went as follows. Once a European state sent explorers to a certain African territory, treaties would be written up and signed between the Europeans and local leaders, generally written only in European languages, not understood by these African leaders. The treaties allegedly gave European protection to these locals, but this was far from the truth. After returning to their homelands, the explorers would have their treaties approved by the local governments first, who would then take the agreement to the rest of the European powers from Berlin Conference and negotiate recognition for their newfound claims. Once the treaty was confirmed by all of the imperial powers, the annexation of the African territory became official. Thus, with the aid of the rules established at the Berlin Conference, the scramble for Africa carried on into the early 20th century, when the world instead turned to a new predicament: the First World War. The official timeline for the scramble is generally set from 1870 until 1914. But why did it happen? One exact reason does not exist. But multiple motivations seem to have cumulatively led the European powers to act in such haste and disregard for the native peoples. Fundamentally, it's important to remember that the Europeans generally viewed their African counterparts as culturally, racially, and intellectually inferior. This means that the explorers and their governmental authorities believed that Africa was free real estate, and the locals were incapable of forming their own independent, functioning states anyway.
From idea to submission, empower students to do their best work with Grammarly's generative AI.
To the European mind, to take all of Africa made perfect sense, and was even morally justifiable. It especially made sense when the Europeans discovered new resources in Africa, such as coffee, sugar, and rubber, that could be extracted by utilizing the labor of the local populations. These discoveries were made through exploration, something that Europeans had been doing for some time now, often driven by each empire's thirst for expansion. This, however, was particularly difficult in Africa to start, due in one part to lethal diseases. Western Africa especially gained the reputation of being the white man's grave, due to its malignant diseases like malaria and yellow fever. The 1700s saw 9 in every 10 colonists sent to Africa by the Royal African Company meet an untimely end, while 6 of those 9 couldn't even last a whole year. It wasn't until quinine was discovered within the bark of the cinchona tree that the Europeans even stood a chance, at least against malaria. Yellow fever was still a threat, but quinine put an end to the malaria massacre. This was crucial, given the undeniable ambition of the European nations to expand their territories and influence outside of their own continent. Capping a lid on the imperial era was all but impossible, so without a cure, many more lives would have simply been sacrificed for the cause. Although it's safe to assume that this development rapidly increased the instance of exploration and colonization. Another motivating factor that made life easier for the Europeans journeying to Africa was a new wave of military innovations, saved only for the Europeans themselves. Breech-loading guns, percussion caps, and the Maxim gun were massive leaps in weaponry for the Europeans, who ensured that such tools would not be sold to the Africans they wished to colonize. This gave the European nations tremendous advantage over the local leaders and warriors who did possess firearms, but nothing to the capability of their invaders. The breech-loading guns allowed for quicker ease of use. The percussion caps lessened time, supplies, and limitations for utilizing the firearms, and the Maxim gun was an early machine gun that could absolutely devastate unsuspecting opponents, firing hundreds of rounds in a single minute, as opposed to at least 5 rounds, capable of being fired by the type of firearms owned by the Africans. Further inventions such as the steamboat and steam train made it even more effortless for the Europeans to breach Africa's borders and interior, whilst carrying their much-needed weaponry. Easier travel, easier wars, and easier treatment of disease served as an added fire in the belly of European expansionist spirit. A sense of overarching superiority remained the outward justification for colonizing faraway lands that were deemed uninhabited, despite already housing great numbers of indigenous peoples. Internally, amongst those in power, an incurable hunger for more power and land was the main driving force for the frantic land grabs, especially when the neighborly rivalries became increasingly apparent and tense. The scramble for Africa was heavily successful for the Europeans, though not once did it factor the wishes of the Africans. The 20th century post-World War era saw the decolonization of the African continent, ultimately undoing all that the scramble had accomplished. Today, Africans have their freedom and autonomy, but there still remain some haunting footprints left behind from a history all too recent.
I'm back. Thank you for tuning in. The reason I showed you that is this. If you look at this video, you'll understand that The European countries came together in unison to destroy the country of Africa. I mean, the continent of Africa. They took it over. They created these fictitious boundaries. They put us in a horrible situation. They did exactly what they did over there as they did over here to the people who are indigenous to this continent. Whenever you are in a situation to whereas you're dealing with these people and they are fighting you and everything that you believe in, you must realize that they'll do everything and anything they can, even tell you lies and things of that nature so you can buy into their BS. We will continue to fall victim to this until we realize what we're up against. We continue to say, hey, this person isn't this and this person isn't that and this party, no party in the history of the United States federal government has ever and will ever have the best interests of Black people. And as I stated again, do you want to fight someone with as they said, a machine gun? Or do you want to fight someone who will fight you head up or put you in a situation to where they just really want to subdue you? And that's what the Democratic Party wants to do. They want to subdue you and they want to pacify you and put you in a peaceful state of mind and then do what they want to do. Whereas these other people want to put you under rule of law and put you in a situation to whereas they can destroy you systematically. They want to destroy you systematically. So this is what you're up against. So you may as well fight the fox, as the great Malcolm X once said, instead of the wolf. The fox is an easier fight to win for a sheep. The wolf runs in packs and will do everything they can to destroy you. The fox isn't big and strong enough to destroy you. Neither one of them, in regards to unity, neither one of them is big and strong enough to destroy you. But we continue to pick and choose and sign and do this foolish dance that we do every 4 years. Now, the question I have, instead of talking about every 4 years, how many people how many of you guys know that every 2 years you elect a new state representative? Not many people know that. How many people know every 6 years you re-elect a state senator? How many people are engaged in their city council? How many people are engaged in their gubernatorial races and things of that nature? These are the things that we really need to be focused on. If you only focus on the president, you will continue to be and will be oppressed to no end. This is not the end all be all. What you're doing at this moment in history, what you're going to do is this: stave off the greatest possible threat in your life. You do not need to be thinking about the fight right now. You need to be fighting right now. And then you need to be thinking about what's going to happen in 25 years. These people have been attempting to do what they're doing at this very moment for the last 60 years. Ever since Lyndon Baines Johnson signed that Voters' Right Act of the nation, signed the Civil Rights Act. We need to be trying to codify that into law. It should no longer be an act. It should be a law. These are the things that we need to be focusing on. Meanwhile, we're focusing on foolishness and nonsense. These are the things that we continue to deal with. What I want to do is bring this to the forefront. Let's talk about local, state, then federal elections. A lot of people say, hey, well, this doesn't really count. They say this every 4 years. Well, let me ask you this. 8 years ago, do women have the same rights that they had 8 years ago? I think not. I know not. I know they don't. You just had a Supreme Court that signed into law that the president cannot be held legally accountable for his actions. You have a candidate who openly says he want to offer, well, police officers at this moment have qualified immunity, which means they can get away with a lot of the things they do. He want to offer them total immunity, which means that guy who walked into their sister's house in central Illinois and blew her brains out of her head and laughed and called her names as she laid on the floor and bled to death, he would still be at work at this moment. He would still be at work at this moment. Do you really want to deal with that? See, we can sit around and we can do this dance and we can talk about this group and that group. Neither group is good for you. But what I do understand is this. What we can do is do what other communities have done. What we can do is take a step back and realize what we're up against. And when we realize what we're up against, we know how to fight at that point. We can do this dance. It's a cute thing we can do. We can do the name calling and we can do the huffing and puffing. But what are we going to do to protect our grandchildren? See, I'm 54 years old in 7 days. In 7 days, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, I'll be 54 years old. I don't have a whole lot more summers. I probably have 30, 35 more summers than me. But my children got a whole bunch of summers in front of them, and their children, and my nieces and nephews. I got a nephew who just gave me an additional nephew this year. My brother's son birthday is today. So that's who I'm worried about. I ain't trying to make allegiance with nothing that sounds cute and we can get all cuddly and we can do this little dance because it sounds real cute up until and including the moment it hurts you. See, that's what we need to be worried about. You know, a lot of people say this didn't happen and that didn't happen. What did you, again, as I stated at the top of the hour, what did you ask for? You got what you organized and mobilized and asked for. Our community does a lot of procrastinating and finger pointing and blaming. Here's the blame. This is where the blame lands. The blame lands right in your lap. If you haven't done anything to organize our community and organize your friends and family to move forward and put yourselves in a better situation, then you're getting exactly what you deserve. It sounds harsh and it sounds like, oh man, rap, you know, you got to understand. No, I don't have to understand, because guess what? I'm also talking to myself because I haven't organized anyone. I haven't mobilized. I mobilized the people who support me, and thank you guys. And if you haven't already, hit that like, hit that share, subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you won't have to worry about me sending you out a notification anymore. These are the things I want you to understand. And another reason I showed you that video is because I want to, first of all, as I do, I'm talking about entertainment every week. Let's dip off into entertainment. First of all, I want to salute our young sister, Simone Biles. Her and her team won the gymnastics gold, from what I understand. They've done it for, this is an unprecedented third straight Olympiad. Congratulations to them. She is literally doing her job better than I've ever seen anybody in the world do their job. So salute to her and the people who are doing this. Another thing I want to address is my young brother, Jaylen Brown. He is extremely active in the Atlanta streets. This is a dude who talks about this is a dude who talks about community activism. He does the immobilize. He's talking about recreating Black Wall Street. He just signed a $300 million deal. So what was his, when he started talking about those things, what was his reward for that? The National Basketball Association said, we don't want you on our Olympic team. First of all, brother, why do you care about playing basketball and representing people who don't like you? Look, it's cool to watch the Olympics. I've been enjoying it. I've been enjoying Simone. I've been enjoying the basketball players. I watched the row, and I've been watching all of that. I think it's amazing what these people dedicated 8, 9, 10 years of their life to be right where they are. Congratulations and salute to all of them. But hey, how about this? If y'all ever thought about this, what if the people who look like you and I took one step back from the Olympics? If 25% of us called off work tomorrow, what would happen? This country will come to a screeching halt. I guarantee you, everybody who's listening to me right now, if you didn't show up, if all of us didn't show up to work tomorrow, the places that we work at will probably fold. Understand that. We are the people who greet you at the hospitals. We are the people who are driving an ambulance. We're the people at the grocery stores. We're the people who are taking care of people elderly. We are the people who are running these schools. We are people who are cooking the food at these schools. We're the people who are working at the restaurants. We're the people who program the very software I'm using to broadcast to you right now. We are those people. So understand, if we start saying, you know what, up until you start treating me like the human being that I am, y'all can have your Olympiads, y'all can have your NBA, y'all can have your NFL, y'all can have all that stuff. Because guess what? It takes absolutely nothing to take a step back and put yourself in a position of power. Brothers who run and jump and throw and hit and catch and swing bats and golf clubs, y'all have enough capital to create your own situations. But instead, you continue to put yourselves in a subservient role. Which brings me to another point. Our brother Gilbert Arenas And my brothers, Paul Pierce, y'all are disgraces to the race. I'm not gonna wash this off with kid gloves. You two brothers are disgraceful. See, it's one thing for Brother H. Rap, who is a working class individual who has bills and all of and things of that nature, to be ignorant about the goings on the continent of Africa. But it's something totally different for a person who has made over $100 million to say that. It's totally different for a person who literally who stopped his own program to go watch the Olympics. These dudes make tens of millions of dollars on a regular basis. They sign contracts with Fox Sports and that. They sign contracts with ESPN. They create revenue on the same platform that I'm on presently. And you sit around and you question if African people have shoes. Are they playing in huts? Do they even wear clothes in Africa? This is a reflection of the self-hate that has been projected upon us for the last 250 years. You are so ignorant and so disrespectful that the people who you are potentially directly descended from, you allow those people to be denigrated, and you make yourself white nationalism adjacent. You, my friends, are Black white nationalists, just like the Stephen A. Smiths of the world, just like the Jason Whitlocks of the world, just like the Candace Owens of the world. And your empty, insane apologies mean absolutely nothing. You insult an entire country and you apologize to one citizen, which is Luau Dane. Salute to that brother. He stepped up and he approved the apology. But you know what? This is why we can't get anywhere. This is exactly why we can't get anywhere, because you separate yourself from people who look just like you. And you align yourself with Americanism, and you use foolish terms like a meritocracy, because you don't use, y'all got here due to my merit and my heart. You are in the position you are in because you can shoot a basketball. Clearly, your time in Kansas was used for nothing but to play basketball. You haven't opened a book since the SAT or something of that nature. You are a total embarrassment to our community. And to insult an entire country of people that look just like you and say stupid things like there's nobody over 6'3", and you've played against and with Luau Dane. And there have been African brothers in the NBA who probably busted you up, who packed you up. And Gilbert Arenas, everything is funny to you. And it's nothing funny. And you got a whole continent of Europe and a whole country of white people looking at you as you do their work, as you denigrate the people on the continent in which our ancestors hail from. But you're so proud to be an American, a country that don't even want you. But you sit up and you denigrate our people. And then, last but not least, I want to send a salute to our young sister, Tiffany Haddish. Look, whether you think she's funny or not, this sister went into a grocery store in Africa and started broadcasting live and showed you that ignorant jackasses like Paul Pierce, like Gilbert Arenas, they can sit around and make fun of people on the continent. And she showed you that the continent is a beautiful place. The continent is a wonderful place, and the people are there living the exact same lives that we're living. Instead of the propagandized foolery that you see on commercials when you see flies around their head and you see their stomach sticking out. And if you were listening closely to that video I played, I hope you heard the part where they said, well, white people couldn't survive in Africa until they found a cure for the malaria. Meanwhile, our brothers and sisters are walking around over there. Just something to roll around in your head for a second. Malaria is something that combats this thing called sickle cell anemia. Some forms of sickle cell are fought off by malaria. Maybe, just maybe, the fact that we're over here in this country, our brothers and sisters suffering from sickle cell, if they were at home, they wouldn't be suffering from that illness, because some forms of malaria soothes sickle cell. How about that? Maybe if we would have stayed in our homeland, places like Liberia, where they tried to run us back into what malaria runs rampant, maybe those people wouldn't be suffering, because you would have morphed into a cure for your own illness just by the natural habitat of the continent. I've read things about a woman who was blind, totally blind, eating this poisonous food that we have here in the United States of America. She went over there 6 months later, she got her sight back, just like Tiffany said. Tiffany said the beautiful thing about the food over here, there are no GMOs. The food tastes better. She was actually big up in the country, and the clowns on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter thought she was making fun of the continent. No, she's showing you that these are real human beings. This is a well-developed country, and maybe, just maybe, instead of flying over the continent to go to Dubai, maybe if you stopped off in the continent, you'll realize Nigeria and Ghana won awards in 18 and 19 for the greatest technological advances on Earth. These are wonderful places to visit. And because you've been taught to hate the way you look, and the #1 product on Earth is skin bleaching disease, and you want to go get your nose augmented, and you want to get your lips reduced, and you want to get your butt reduced. Meanwhile, your European counterparts, everybody around the world, they're trying to be just like you. You're being asinine when you do these things. We have to stop hating ourselves. Which leads me to the closeout point tonight. This is why I asked a lot of my friends and family members and the supporters of my program. Thank you. I want to thank the people who reached out to me over the last 10 days. It really meant a lot. I've had several people reach out to me and thank me for what I do every Tuesday. And I want to say right now, that phone call, that text message, that inbox message was greatly appreciated, because sometimes I don't think I'm reaching anybody, but the fact that some people who I rarely talk to reached out to me from all over the country. It was nobody in Chicago. Not saying that the people in Chicago and the Chicagoland or Cook County don't appreciate me, but it's people outside of Chicago, which meant the entire world to me. It is greatly appreciated, and thank you for the support. Hit that like button, dog. But this is what I want to talk about. We continue to separate ourselves. And, most people are spiritual people. And as I was just talking about the continent, monotheology, the study of one God, the worshiping of one God, no rain God, no sun God, no water God, the study of one God. You can call him Jehovah, you can call him your way, you can call him God, you can call him whatever you want, or Allah, you call him whatever you want. But this monotheology comes from the continent. So if you're a Jew, you're from the continent. If you're a Muslim, you're from the continent. If you are a believer or a Christian, you come from the continent. The Catholicism is a warped version of Christianity from the 88 books of the Bible in Ethiopia. Catholicism. It's amazing how the very same people who created Catholicism are the people who destroyed the Messiah. But I'm not gonna get into a theological conversation, but this is what I want to talk about. You got the 5 major religions, the 4 or 5 major religions throughout the world. We have several other religions, and if I don't mention the one that you participate in, please forgive me, but I'm making a point. Maybe, just maybe, this map that we've drawn to God is not just the map that we're using personally. I'm a believer in Christ. Okay? I have no problem with it. Attack me, do whatever you want. That's where I am. You can be wherever you want to be. But I want you to pay attention to this. Maybe all of us are right? Maybe it's a tree. The tree is one of the few entities, or the plant, but I'm going to use the tree because the tree is the strongest of the plants. The tree is the only entity that grows down just as far as it grows up. The further it grows down, the more it takes from the earth and enriches itself, the more it grows up. The sun creates it. So you have Mother Nature and the sun and the earth working in unison to make this thing powerful. The reason I wanted the people to tune in is this. Let's just say we're all right. So let's just start with Islam. Islam are traditionally some of the most disciplined people in the history of the world. They are structured, they have discipline, they take 5 periods in the day to stop and pay homage to the creator of the universe. They will pray to God, praise God, and they live their life in accordance to what they perceive God is. They stop and address him and pay homage to him. It's a beautiful situation. We talk about the Hebrew or the Jewish religion, or the culture, whatever you want to call it. Let's not get into semantics, because I know some jerk somewhere, hey, well, it's not this. Keep it to yourself. Now, you got the Jews. History is very paramount. I have some Jewish buddies. Dave Trout, salute to you, brother. Mike, Nick, salute to you. Craig Rosenbaum, salute to you. What I've experienced when I broke bread with them, what I experienced was this. They even have meals commemorating certain things on their palate is to commemorate the struggle that they've been to. That means they have a keen sense of history. And when you have a keen sense of history, you have a keen sense of family. When you have a keen sense of family, you have a communal sense. And guess what? What we always talk about, you need to be more like the Jews. And because they got the money, they control all the purse strings and this, that, when all those negative tropes, positive tropes, or whatever you want to call them. We have, stereotypical sayings for the Jewish community. But guess what? They holding on to their history. They're holding on to their family. They're holding on to their traditions. And they're holding on to their diet. Guess what? If you go to the county hospital anywhere or any hospital in the United States of America, you do not see a lot of Jewish people in there suffering from diabetes and things of that nature. So maybe that's, and seeing how God put in our holy books, he put down here everything that's for you. Maybe they have something. Talk about the people like myself, believers or part of the Christian faith. We stop if we get a good pocket space. We represent God in everything we do. I talk about God on my program every week. Every week I talk about God on y'all. I quote scripture every week. And shout out to my pastor, Pastor Dodd, great teacher of the word. What I want you to do is we inculcate the word in every step of our lives. Get a good pocket space. Get a good job. We pray in the morning. We pray at night. And you know what that means? That means we have a strong faith-based life. Strong faith-based life. And then you got the Hindus and you got the Buddhists. And I'm going to condense that simply because I don't have a whole lot of time. They do what this dude named P I know called penitentiary rules. I know we shouldn't be talking about penitentiary rules when I'm talking about something spiritual, but walk with me. It's a path that I'm walking down. Penitentiary rules respect any and everything around you. When you're dealing with the Buddhists and the Hindus, nothing is above them, and they're not above anything. That means they respect everything and all life that's around them. They use they ground themselves and make themselves one with nature. Just imagine if you took the Hindu and the Buddhist, you took the Judaism, you took the Islam, you took the Christianity, and you make one fist. That fist will represent all of humanity. And if you represent all of humanity, that means you're paying attention the way God wants you to be. You can maybe, just maybe, the fact that when you're dealing with your religion and digital spirituality, a lot of it comes down to verbiage. You know, kind of like your grandmother called it soda water. In Chicago, we call it pop. In other places, they call it soda or they call it Coke or Pepsi. But we're all talking about the same thing. Maybe, just maybe, if we take a little bit from each one of those cultures, while you ground yourself with those roots in your culture, you use the roots in your belief system, but you take that family and that history from the Jews, you take that structure and that steadfastness from the Muslims, you take the respect for all life from the Hindus, and you take the grounding of yourself from the Buddhists. Maybe you'll be exactly what God wants you to be, and that's a human being, and the best human being you could be. And at that point, you won't have to worry about the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, because you'll be worried about humanity. That's what I wanted to share with you guys. It's something that I was thinking about 2 o'clock in the morning one time. With that being said, I want to thank each and every one of you. I'm not saying that you need to inculcate anything into your spirituality, because that's your spirituality and that's your relationship with God. But God also wants you to respect any and everything around you. God also wants you to respect your family. God also wants you to remember him in everything you do. God also wants you to be disciplined, structured, and steadfast in your faith and your beliefs. And more than anything, God wants you to respect him. And what is he? He is everything that is around you. So whether you call him Jehovah Jireh, whether you call him Yahweh, whether you call him Allah, or if you call him a rock, or whatever you want to call him, maybe you just took all the penance, maybe if you root yourself in your faith and take some other things from around you, you could be the best human being you could be. With that being said, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. It's a privilege, and I really enjoy talking to you guys every week. Everybody who's in the chat room, thank you. Thank you. Again, hit that like, hit that share, tell a friend to tune in. I'll see y'all in 7 days. Listen to this song. I play this song every week, but I want you guys to actually listen to the words this time. This is my man, Big Mo. This is my business partner. This is my brother. He's my family. This Big Mo, 2 fingers, 1 word. I'm A-Trap. I'll see y'all.
We lust for that cheese. We lose sleep, dreams of that cream. We killing our teens. They down for this American dream. Them government schemes, they turning us to hustlers and fiends. We hustling trees. The politicians smuggling dressed in the streets. Pardon me for speaking freely. Let it breathe. Evangelists preach the congregation for ties. Now she turning, now she giving them strain. He new to this game, but hungry, so he cooking his cane. He getting that paper, but then they gave him 2 to the brain. It's rules to this game, but hustlers never. It's grimy, so we struggle to change. They put us in chains to take away our African names. But if we submissive and don't resist, then who do we blame? It's all a game, man. These Europeans staking they claim, and you a victim of their game plan. You thinking they ain't? You thinking they saints? Remember all them niggas they hang? Killed our women and our children. That nigga was hoping for change, but Zimmerman is killing niggas and he free. Shit is crazy, babies having these babies and getting checked. But keep the child from they pop to rip his heart out his chest. Our rappers was leaders and now they in the booth in the dress, spitting bullshit and making more but giving us less. They taking our sound and our jobs and homes and they shutting us out. They taking our kids because it ain't a man in the house. They locking us down, but soon they gon' be wiping us out. They told our women they was too independent to need a man. They told our brother he was too insignificant to advance. It's all a game, man. These Europeans staking they claim, and you a victim of their game plan. You thinking they ain't? You thinking they saints? Remember all them niggas they hang? Killed our women and our children, all our leaders is slain. It's all a game.